The Definity Genesis event and ICP token release was one of the most anticipated events in crypto in recent times. However, since that release, we've seen a sharp decline in the price of ICP. Now, in order to understand why this is happening, we need to take a look at the investors, their token distributions, as well as release schedules, also some of the more fundamental aspects and the difficulties of getting mass adoption for a project like this. And in order to formulate a plan going forward, it never hurts to have a look at the technicals, so stick around to the end where I do that. I'm Ian, welcome to Brokenomics, and if you enjoy our content, you know what to do. So let's get straight into this. First of all, in 2017, we had the seed fundraising round. Tokens were sold at only 3.6 cents per ICP at this point. Now, $4.2 million was raised, which actually results in around 116 million ICP being sold, which, given their total token circulation at launch was 470 million, 116 million represents almost 25% of that. After that, in 2018, we saw another 160 million being raised from private fundraising rounds. Members who partook in this include Polychain and Andreessen Horowitz. Now, these guys bought their tokens at about $4.50 per ICP, representing about a 150x increase in price already from the seed round. And yeah, these actually make up about 12% of the total tokens in circulation. So when we put those two together, early investors hold about 36% of the total ICP tokens. So looking at the release schedules, the airdrop participants who only represent a tiny amount of tokens actually unlock over a 12-month period starting back in May. And Sales Wallet here wrote an article on Medium which, in the absence of any real information that's very specific from Definity themselves, tells us that the early seed fundraising round, participants in that are subject to a 4-year release of their tokens. So that's about 25% of the tokens getting released over the next 4 years. In terms of anybody else involved in the project, there's no specifics. And if there's no specifics, I mean, we can only be led to assume that there is no lockup. So, yeah, because of this kind of lack of clear-cut information, we've seen Dominic having to defend himself. If you don't know who he is, he's the man behind this unbelievable technology. And if it's the technology and the system you're interested in, we do have a video for that. I'll leave a link to it, up here. I'll see if that works. If not, I'll put it in the description. But yeah, so he's had to defend himself on Twitter now because, obviously people are pissed off. They thought they were buying, a golden goose, and that's not the way things have panned out. So he actually said, these crypto markets oscillate between extreme greed and extreme fear, and then eventually they turn to rationality. Well, I'm not sure if markets ever get rational if they just go greed, fear. But anyway, and he also said that it's a myth that the venture capitalists are dumping. Well, if you want to dispel that myth, put out clear token release schedules. Tell us who sold what. And he also said that, these guys are in it for the long term and they make most of their money off moonshots, to which, we tweeted back, well, hang on a minute, if some of these guys actually got in the first sale at 3.6 cents and others were in at $4.50 and price for this was up at like kind of, $600, $500, $400 the first day. I know it went down pretty quickly after that. But if, 100x plus doesn't constitute a moonshot for the second round, and for the first round, I mean, Jesus Christ, at $3.60 it's 100x. At $36 it's 1000x. It's still sitting at about over 2000x for them, for the seed investors, who I know, in fairness, they are subject to the 4-year vesting period. So it actually probably isn't those guys selling much of the tokens. And really, with 52%, as we'll see in the next slide, put aside for foundation endowment, that really doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for who is selling the tokens. So when we look at this pie chart, it suddenly, becomes a lot clearer which tokens are not being sold and which ones are. First of all, on the left-hand side, the foundation endowment tokens, which are tokens for furthering the goals of the network, helping them with their strategic goals, helping them to build partnerships with other blockchains, companies, programmers, these kind of things that help them get where they want to be. They should not be the tokens that are being sold at this point. If we look, of course, at the 25% that was in the seed sale, as we touched on before, they're subject to a 4-year vesting period. So it's, no doubt lots of those, whatever came available at those prices, I'm sure people sold because they're just up such an insane amount of money on them, and they're only unlocking the first portion of that 4-year unlock. So they still hold plenty of ICPs. So, it wouldn't make any logical sense not to sell the small portion you're allowed at those kind of gains, but you never know. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the sort of venture capitalist tokens added onto, the 1.5% or whatever that was the airdrop. So the venture capitalist tokens are certainly, front and center of the ones that appear to be not subject to a lockup and being sold at the minute. And then, of course, in the top right, you have the early contributor tokens at just under 10%. Now, that's obviously just like a kind of different way of saying team. They're the team tokens. And again, this is where to look for the tokens being sold at the moment. So even though, we've seen a sharp decline in price, and we've seen that, the 25% seed sale are subject to 4-year vesting, so not a lot of them have been sold. What that means is that only a very small percentage of these tokens at the minute are actually in circulation. And in spite of that, we're still seeing a decrease in price. And we will see more of these come into circulation in the future. And that's why, again, in the previous Definity video, we said we were incredibly impressed by the team, incredibly impressed by the technology, the concept, but the tokenomics of it worried us. The amount of money these people were up worried us. The lack of a clear token release schedule worried us. And for me, not a lot has changed in that aspect. So if I had to guess, I would say somewhere between 20 and 25% of the total token distribution is actually in circulation at the minute. And we're still seeing a lot of selling pressure with more supply coming into the market. That does concern me. But looking at their socials in terms of gaining this mass adoption and becoming the new internet, the dumb money approach, I suppose, to looking at it, they have about 230k followers on Twitter, which is, don't get me wrong, it's a lot, but it's a long way from, mass adoption. I don't know what Kim Kardashian has, but I'd say it's more than that. And then on YouTube, only 16k followers, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, we'd love 1,600 followers, let alone 16k, but or subscriptions, I should say. But for a huge project that has the goals of that, they have a long way to go. Over 1 million views on the channel, though. And what I would say is, when we looked at their channelytics, because we use TubeBuddy for YouTube analytics and stuff like that, so it actually helped us in this in terms of we could see that only in the last 2 days has their channel actually broken 100k views. So interest in this is increasing, and although they have a long way to go, they do have the team behind it to do it, and they have the vision to do it. But as I said in the previous video, and as Zach said, Warren Buffett, eat your heart out. I think he said these seed and pre-sale investors are just up so much money that it's going to be hard to sustain price at the levels we were seeing certainly in the IOU beforehand. And just to touch on a good place to find out exactly what's going on, Definity are putting the work in and trying to develop apps. They have the District app, which we can see here, surpassed 1,000 registrations for the decentralized social network in less than a day. Kind of looks like a Facebooky, Insta type mix of an app, kind of looks like putting the two together. And a lot of the apps seem to be, quite close clones of what we already have, because in so many ways the internet we have works. The way they see it as not working is, decentralization and control of data. We also had Definity Swap, which was doing an airdrop, which we participated in. I don't actually know if that's running anymore, but that's a decentralized exchange that'll run on the network as well. So there's a lot of work going on in their programming language, Makoto, and they are trying to develop and they are trying to get things done. I think just the main point here is that adoption takes a lot of time. We know it with the YouTube channel, sometimes people have to see the same video 5, 6, 7 times or more maybe before they actually go, these guys aren't that bad, maybe I'll give them a sub. This is just a good account. Definity developers, good account to follow to keep an eye on what's going on. They are putting the work in, but it is how it is. I mean, it's going to be a huge paradigm shift if they manage to pull it off, and they don't happen overnight, Quick shill, we do have a Telegram group, so if you guys want to chat about crypto projects or be involved in the kind of stuff the channel does in terms of suggesting content for us, we always listen to our subs. One of them was the reason we looked at Definity before anyone else in the first place, and that really got the channel going. So in terms of this, right, let's keep this really, really simple. We're going to look at market structure, volume, the anchored VWAP, which I'll explain in a second, and the 5-day moving average. This is a 4-hour chart. So the 5-day moving average, to get that on a 4-hour chart, it's a 30-period moving average, because there's 30 periods of 4 hours in 5 days. So let's start. An anchored VWAP is a average price paid by volume. from a particular point in time. So a VWAP is just average price by volume. This time we have anchored it to this point in time. So since the launch day, obviously, and it is particularly useful, and especially in the case of crypto projects that are backed heavily by VCs, venture capitalists, and funds, because anchored VWAPs are something that they use a lot in their technical analysis. And we can see, I mean, obviously it sold off here at the start, but the second it touched it up here, there was heavy selling, and all the way down, to $118 basically from 300, and it's never really recovered since that. But they also use it on different kind of bases. So obviously here will be it a high volume event is another place to use it from, and also month to date and week to date VWAPs are useful. So just that's the first obviously month there, and it never got near it. And if we just zoom in a bit, so forget about this little bit, it's just anchoring itself to here, which will be the 1st of June, and we can see it did break above it here, but in general acting as resistance and has sold off. And even the month to date of June, we're still in decline. The 5-day moving average, again, decline. And if you're below a declining 5-day moving average short term, certainly it's not the best idea from a technical standpoint to get involved long in terms of a trend following strategy, which I did swing trade for a couple of years and learned from Brian Shannon, who was absolutely excellent, followed a trend following strategy and managed to make money doing it. So that's the technique I'm familiar with, and although I don't swing trade now, I do use the exact same methods in order to time entries in the market. And with this, what I would like to see is obviously a consolidation above this 50 level, so just to level out, just to calm down for a little while, make a run up, maybe somewhere near kind of this little band of resistance here, maybe around the 100 mark, run up to 100, pull back, consolidate, make a few higher lows, and then get going above these levels again, or above the high that it makes up here. So for me, again, much like we said in the first video, we were going to be cautious on this one. I'm going to remain cautious on it. I haven't bought any ICP yet. Again, I really like the project and do want to be involved in it, but I'm not going to get involved in it when it doesn't line up from a technical standpoint, or indeed, the token release schedule isn't exactly filling me with confidence either. So yeah, I'm going to wait, I'm going to hang on, and I will update you guys in the future if as things change with this project and as I look to time some entries. So cheers lads, that's all from me today. Appreciate you guys watching the video, and I'll catch you guys soon.